Are you going to see Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights?
Do you mean Wuthering Heights?
I do.
I have no plans.
The thing that has really stuck with me is the now viral Letterboxd review that said Emily Bronte died of tuberculosis 177 years ago, and Emerald Fennell's adaptation is still the worst thing to ever happen to her.
I mean, there's been a lot of...
It's just so savage. Hello and welcome to Expected Own Goals, an incroyable move to Kansas City, and we finally get some clarity about Bay's midfield. I am your host, Eric Morgan.
And I am Evan Davis. Yeah, what's going on with Kansas City? Exactly.
First off, I want to say I don't think these are like seismic moves. I think that these are just like big, like I think the profile of player because of their U.S. women's national team status is like what makes them newsworthy. But in terms of the amount of change that is affected on the field for each of these teams, I kind of think it's like a little more limited than say like signing Barbara Banda was transformative for Orlando.
Well, let's save your bullets and first let's get the nuts and bolts of what was a headline-making week in the NWSL offseason last week. Croix Bethune transferred to the Kansas City Current for what amounts to $1 million. Mm-hmm. Claire Hutton goes out the other direction to Bay FC for what amounts to $1.1 million. Mm-hmm. And that is the sum total of it.
Yeah, so let's rush them on this from the perspectives of each of these teams and what they've gained and lost through this.
So you want to start with Washington?
Let's start with Washington. What's your read on the Washington move?
My read on the Washington move is that for whatever her reasons might be, Croix Bethune asked for this. It's on public and on the record that
absolutely.
She publicly requested a transfer, and then the Spirit worked to try and find the best deal for them to make it happen. Seems like Bethune wanted a new kind of developmental challenge. What that means about her experience in Washington recently is a little murky. If it's something to do with the coaching staff, the organization more broadly, or Bethune just kind of wanting to stretch her wings with a year left on her deal. So she kind of has to move now for it to work for everybody. We don't really know the firm answers to that. But there are people who feel like this might be potentially problematic for Washington on the field in 2026. Your initial reaction seemed that that wasn't necessarily the case.
Yeah, I think that what I would say is I can understand why Bethune, who is a really special player, would like to be in a system that allows her to sort of amplify what is special about her game. Mm. And I think that Washington last year, she was obviously her rookie season in 2024 is like one of the best rookie seasons ever, full stop. And like, you know, I think that last year she comes back from injury. She has like a rough entry back into the league, is not good for a handful of weeks, recovers to something that resembles a lot more what she was in 2024 by the end of the season, but also is in a system that they don't need to play with a 10 to like generate the offense they want. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure, particularly considering like Adrian Gonzalez's like Catalan background, like I am not certain that he wants to play a 4-2-3-1 or something that looks like that or with a pure 10. And I think would be happier playing with in a 4-3-3 system that sort of leaves Bethune odd one out.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. I don't know. I don't see, at least on paper right now, who the player is that even if the role is defined differently, who is the one kind of filling that space at the moment. Because, you know, Gift Monday can drop, you know, and play false 90 when she wants, but she's really at her best when she's peeling off of the shoulder. Mm-hmm. So even if you want to play a 4-3-3 and have more interchangeable pieces in midfield, and then I guess it's Lacey Santos that becomes that player.
And also like Lacey Santos, I think really did demonstrate, especially toward the end of last season, a capacity to do
for sure
like the defensive work as well as the offensive work.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's like really crucial about this Bethune move is the impact of the Trinity Rodman deal is such that Bethune, who is a year out from getting paid, like really getting paid, is just one of many players that they now need to figure out how they afford. And I think she ended up odd one out. And like that is an actuarial and dispassionate choice I think Washington made that said, we owe a lot of people money. We've seen it now with the Tara Rudd re-signing. And I think they sort of assessed, okay, we have this mid-20s high-value attacking player that we look at last year's data and say, is this player worth, internally as our assessment is concerned, is this player worth what we could get for her on the open market to us? And I think the answer was, there is probably somebody out there that will overpay for Bethune in our estimation against our valuation more than would pay for anyone else that we would like to try to re-sign.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that argument presupposes that it was the Spirit driving this, and it seems like it's Bethune who was driving it.
Yeah, what I mean is like once you know that a player is unsettled, like even if that weren't the precondition, like I think it would be very easy to make that choice with like to look at the players you have on hand and sort of already be thinking that way.
Sure.
And with a year left, they got really good money for her.
Yeah, no question. I think everybody kind of gets what they want ultimately. I don't think that Bethune's 2026 is going to look like her 2025 simply because the double ACL is pretty far in the rear view now.
Totally.
And the meniscus tear was a freak accident because of the first pitch thing. So whether we can really classify her...
Croix, please don't throw out the first pitch at a Royals game.
Yeah, right. Learn your lesson. Whether we can really classify her going forward as like especially injury prone, I don't know if we can necessarily do that. So I think that there's every reason to believe that she's going to be the player we saw in 2024. But you are right that as far as counting the beans is concerned, this probably does work out for Washington.
And I think Washington's been shown a real capacity for finding value in the market. And like that's the big thing. It's
of
like,
all the teams that could afford to lose a player of that talent at that age, probably Washington's the one who can weather the storm the best. Yeah.
Yeah, and because I think the thing that's lost in a lot of this that you brought up when we were talking off air is that Washington has also already spent a fair amount of money in the transfer market on Claudia Martinez, who seems like more of a project but has incredible upside.
Yeah, which we haven't really talked about her. I mean, at 18 years old, she cost $950,000 according to reports. So that is all upside, but that is if we trust the quality of Washington's recruitment operation, and they felt that it was appropriate,
and we pretty much do,
and we felt that it was appropriate to spend almost $1 million in an 18-year-old Paraguayan who's never played at this level before, that's very, very exciting, and that's also potential franchise cornerstone for a decade and a half if you keep her over and over again. Like there's something very, very exciting about that. And you probably couldn't afford both of them in the long term. So I guess you take your bet on Martinez being the long-term play. And she is exciting. I mean, she tied for the Golden Boot at the Copa America last year.
I think if the Washington front office, who deserves as much leeway as any front office does in this league, assesses her at the value that they've paid, along with all of the other weapons that they've acquired, and Rose Kouassi, who I still think has huge breakout potential, yet on top of what she's already produced, Gift Monday, who was exceptional last season, Sofia Cantore, who looks really good in flashes. They are not short of weapons, and now they are adding to their arsenal. They'll get Ashley Hatch back at some point in this season. Like goal scoring is not going to be the issue.
Right.
And so as much as I think maybe the element that's mutual here is that Bethune wanted something else developmentally, but she also saw the writing on the wall that this was going to be like a real challenge to play her game her way inside this system with all of the supporting cast members and attack around.
Yeah. And maybe she and her agent were feeling like extension talks weren't really going anywhere, or maybe the Spirit flat out said, like, we don't really feel like an extension's in the cards. And that's what drove her decision. That's all speculation. I have absolutely no idea if that's what was going on, but maybe that's possible because she had only 1 year and a club option left. So we don't know. Interestingly enough, Kansas City doesn't seem to have signed her to a new deal, which means theoretically they have to pick up the club option in order to prevent her from hitting free agency in the fall. But I know we wanted to kind of like move west, but I actually want to maybe hit the Bay FC part of it just because I think that's quick.
Yeah,
The KC stuff is actually pretty naughty, but the Bay stuff, it is so obvious that this is a home run and something that they desperately needed.
Yeah. No, I think this is the kind of move that we've been waiting for from the Bay front office.
Well, because we didn't know if they were going to keep up their high spending ways.
Yeah, this is the move that we were afraid may never come, and that we'd been hoping for really since they acquired Rachel Kundananji in that winter, where it looked like so much was possible.
Yeah.
And subsequently have not delivered on that. Now they've gone out and signed Claire Hutton to a deal that is expensive, but dramatically improves their midfield and may end up looking like an absolute bargain if they can hold her long term.
Well, it's interesting. I have not seen reports that she has signed a new deal with them, that she is still on the final year of her rookie contract. So the splash is the 1.1 million transfer fee, which is a lot of money, but if they've got it in their transfer budget, okay, fine. Which means they're probably going to keep their payroll still manageable because she would cost a pretty penny if you re-signed her. But also, as you say, there is the risk, and maybe there's an extension coming. We don't know. But as it stands, it's still 1 year left. But one of their, if not weakest, certainly the most inconsistent areas of on-field production.
Oh, I think you can say weakest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you were being unfair.
What are we projecting now for Bay's midfield? It's Claire Hutton, Hannah Bebar, and Taylor Huff.
Yeah.
That seems like it could potentially be a great midfield for years to come. I mean...
Yeah, with Gamero also in there.
Yeah, I mean, she's got injury stuff that she's dealing with.
Yeah, for years to come, they have yet another component that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But the engine room on this Bay team is now very young and very promising.
Yeah. Huff, under the hood, didn't really produce very much in 2025. Is that just shaking some rookie rust off and getting better teammates around her, and then suddenly her potential will be realized? Maybe.
I would say from the scouting POV, like, when I watch Taylor Huff, I see a player in the same way that when I watch Maddie Darlene, I see a player, but like the numbers just haven't like caught up with what that player is.
Yeah.
And like with Huff, I think there were like a dearth of opportunities to really ease your way into Bay.
Yeah.
She was pretty much thrown straight into the fire. And that is really tough when you're making the jump between leagues. I always go back to what the great Kim McCauley said about defenders, but I think we can apply it to lots of other positions, which is just like sometimes you just need a rookie mulligan.
Yeah. And there are other attacking questions that Bay still has to answer. But now, if you look at the Hutton Bebar engine room, what I really like about that is that they are now kind of perfectly complementary pieces. The thing that Bebar faded down the stretch on wasn't her passing. It was her defensive acumen. Well, guess what Claire Hutton is really good at, and what's the part of her game that maybe she's a little weaker at? Like, they now get to be the strength to fill each other's weakness.
Yeah, what's so interesting about this is, like, if Claire Hutton was looking to replicate the sort of structure of the midfield she was so successful in Kansas City in a new place, while also sort of like finding surroundings that felt more quintessentially her.
Yeah.
She really couldn't have done better than going to Bay, where Hannah Bebar can sort of play the Labonta to her Hutton.
Yeah.
And can offer that sort of like the stick where Hutton's game just has a little more polish.
A little more polish, but also if you are looking for someone to like play make from deep, like Bebar can be your option, and you can allow Hutton a little bit more positional freedom to go win the ball. And also, I think Hutton has a reputation of being a good passer. She's certainly not negative according to the data we have, but she's not exactly producing much. But that also just might mean that she wasn't asked to be like the most serious progression threat in Kansas City's system when you have Debinha, at times Vanessa DiBernardo, and when she's dropping deep, Bia Zanerato to play that part. So this also might just give Hutton an opportunity to really let her passing talents flourish. Either way, I think this is a just really lovely match of two player profiles. And so I think Bay fans can actually be really excited, especially now that like you got Montoya out of there and you have two players that are going to prevent things looking a little bit sloppy in the most dangerous areas of the park.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's like really important to remember about Bay, even though for 2 years in a row both of us have just bitten the projection bullet on what we think they are capable of, is that Bay last year was significantly better under the hood than what their table performance suggested.
Yeah.
Like where they finished.
They were not a 13th place team last year, even though they weren't good.
Yeah, correct. They were maybe the 9th or 10th best team in the league.
Yeah.
And the 9th or 10th best team in the league that adds a Claire Hutton suddenly becomes, like, particularly in a year with 2 expansion teams,
you're sniffing
like
around
a real playoff threat.
For sure.
So the Kansas City of it all. First off, can I just get a high level? How concerned are you about Kansas City?
I think that this is a Rorschach test, this little off-season window. Depending on who you are and what your priorities are or how you see the game, I think you see the Kansas City situation differently than other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's first of all just like lay out what this ultimately means actuarially, to use your earlier word. In the end, Kansas City gives up Claire Hutton and they get Croix Bethune and $100,000. Ultimately, that's what this comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, does this make them better in 2026? Does this maybe set them up to be better long term? In what ways does it make them weaker? Are they irreparably weaker? I think a lot of people have different points of view on this question. We should also note that if you read the tea leaves based on everybody's comments, it does seem that Hutton did not ask for this, that this was something that Ryan Dell and Vlatko Andonovski came to her with. And
Hutton seems to be cool with the move.
Well, that's it. So, I mean, Hutton's comments have basically been like, once I knew this was happening, I just treated it like free agency and like took a look at my options. And it does seem like she had options, like there was a market for her.
Oh, for sure.
It's that before that decision was made, I don't think she was necessarily looking to get out of KC. What also seems to be, if not confirmed, but at least a pretty compelling narrative, is that Croix Bethune becomes available. Kansas City really wants her, but then they got to figure out how to afford her. We don't know if that is 100% the reason that they put Claire Hutton up on the market.
But the timing of all of it, totally reasonable argument.
The timing of it all does seem pretty compelling, especially given the amounts of each transfer fee. You know, like it's a little neat.
It's almost a little too clean.
It's a little too clean. But then if we accept that as what happened, then we have to ask ourselves, why do Andonovski and Dell believe that the team is better set up in the long term and in 2026 by having Bethune in the lineup and not having Hutton in the lineup? That ultimately is the question we have to answer.
My argument, and I think it is one that I don't fully buy here, but
Okay.
but the argument, I think that if I'm playing Andonovski Armas, if I'm playing the longs, here's what I think. You can much more easily create a Claire Hutton than you can a Croix Bethune at her peak.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity to add someone who can bring that much value, as we see it, to your team, you should, whenever you can. And there's a sort of an onus on the coaching to figure out how to make these pieces work. But in the aggregate, you have made your team better at creating goals than they were, which is really saying something.
I agree. When you look at the spread in talent between Claire Hutton, who was probably the second best central midfielder in the NWSL last year, and then across a 2-year period, a top 3 player at that position. If you look at the spread of her production to the league average everyday central midfielder, the gap is much smaller than what you're getting from the Dabinas, Rose Lavelles, Jaden Shaws, Croix Bethunes of the attacking midfield bunch relative to that position's league average production.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you get even 80% of Bethune 2024, you have added value to your team, even if you've lost Claire Hutton. What I think, like at least as we look at it on the spreadsheet, I think the much bigger question now for me, and I think this is the core of what every concerned Kansas City supporter should be feeling, is your team is older and they were already kind of old. Your team now lacks depth at a crucial position that they didn't lack depth in. So they are less balanced than they once were. And they've gone and taken a bet on a player who does have an injury history that is really critical and is really severe, and added that to the mix of players that we saw down the stretch not able to maintain fitness. So, like, does this help you win a title? That answer for me is a lot less clear.
The anti-KC argument is the injury history, as you said, the depth issue, as you said. At this point, Rocky Rodriguez is next player up, and she's 32 years old, or she's going into her age 32 season. We don't know if there's another signing coming. There may not be another signing coming. And so if you are asking the Kansas City defensive unit under a new head coach who does not have a great off-the-field reputation and who seems to have been hired because he's buddies with Jesse Marsh, and Chris Long called Jesse Marsh to ask, like, you know anybody, rather than going through a more rigorous search. You put all of that together and you say, well, this could portend, if not disaster, then maybe no guarantee of a playoff place. I think that if you want to take the positive spin, it is Hutton, for all of her gifts, is probably more replaceable, as you argue. And the other thing is the position that she plays. Not only do you want to get a really good player in that position because you're going to extract more and scarcer value from a player like that, but the other two players you have in the depth chart who can play in that zone, DiBernardo and Dabinia, they're both going into their age 34 seasons.
Yeah, it's bad.
So with Bethune going into her age 25 season, with the talent that we know she possesses, and if you believe that she is not a chronic injury risk, which I think there's an argument to be made that she's not a chronic injury risk. Yeah. If you look at it from that lens, you're like, well, actually, we're making an upgrade here. And we're setting our team up long-term maybe better. And, like, it's an unpleasant but perhaps necessary sacrifice. I think Vlatko Ananovsky sort of said something to that effect in the press conference that he and Ryan Dell had. It's like sometimes front offices have to make really hard and uncomfortable decisions, and this was one of them. This could end up working out for KC. My personal view on it is, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work out in the end.
My view here is the primary issue Kansas City ran into last year was load management. And so if what you think is an issue of depth in your attack is a load management question, reloading with Ali Sentner, who, by the way, and we will talk about this more in the preview, was very good with Kansas City, or was just not the Ali Sentner of Utah, but was better. And then you add Croix Bethune, you suddenly have a real ability to spread minutes in attack. And, like, that might be, as Kansas City sees it, the thing that denied them the ability to move forward, particularly once you factor in, like, just the raw misfortune of losing at home to Gotham in the way that they did.
Who is your primary attacking group right now? It's Temwa Chewinga, it's Michelle Cooper, it's Croix Bethune. Potentially, we're looking at Ali Sentner being moved into the number 9/false night.
By the way, I think that all indications are that that's happening.
And I think that's probably a better use of her.
It certainly leaves her closer to goal.
Yeah. And also, you've got Dabinia in there, and depending on whether or not you want to use Vanessa DiBernardo in one way or the other, either she's first player off the bench in central midfielder, or she's first player off the bench at the 10, and fingers crossed, age 34 season, but with a year of rest, maybe she's ready to continue contributing. Regardless, that's not a bad piece of bench depth to have when you have those other 5 players I just mentioned in front of her. And that looks pretty compelling.
As the game has evolved, and both on the men's side and the women's side, there's a question of, like, how many players does it take for you to attack effectively while maintaining defensive solidity?
Right.
And what we've seen on the men's side with sort of like the best teams in the world is they've eventually gotten to the point where they're like, maybe only 3, maybe 4. And what I think Kansas City has done here is very much go with 5. And that 5 will be interchangeable, but it is definitely Cooper and Chewinga. And then it is Bethune and probably Dabinia and probably Sentner now through the 9. So if what we're saying is that, like, we're in a she stays, she goes situation between Dabinia and Croix Bethune. There's value there. There's also value in breaking down low blocks if you really do feel like you're going to overwhelm a team. Bethune is like maybe one of the best lock pickers in the league. And that was definitely a problem in that playoff game.
Yeah.
So I think my real question here is not really one of philosophy, but what the coaching task is for Armas and whether he's up to it. I think that we'll definitely go into depth when we preview Kansas City, and we'll get somebody who knows Chris Armas's career a little bit more to comment on it. But like Armas as a men's side coach is like, I think it would be fair to say, and consensus with all the people I've talked to, is like not a net negative as like a tactician.
Yeah.
He's maybe not a net positive, but he's not like actively going to hurt your team, which is huge.
Yeah.
Like truly huge. So the question for him, who did play defensive midfield for a lot of his career, is like, how can I sculpt this midfield to maintain solidity while having an explosive attack?
And also all the off-field questions.
Off-field, he's maybe a disaster.
Well, so much of it is perplexing. Like there was always this rumor that he snaked Jesse Marsh when they were in England together, yet it's Jesse Marsh who recommended him for the job. And obviously it was like an ownership-driven old boys network that even got him in the room and probably ended up getting him the job. So like that doesn't seem great. He lashed out at reporters when he was in MLS, and so doesn't necessarily seem like he can comport himself well.
Wouldn't have been my hire.
Wouldn't have been my hire either. So yeah, I think you're right. A lot of off-field questions. On field, it's probably a push. And then
it's just like it's like a different balance, and we loved how balanced Casey was last year,
right?
And now we don't see the balance yet. That doesn't mean it can't exist there.
Yeah,
it just isn't as clear.
And in terms of long-term success, let's take those four attackers: Chawinga, Cooper, Sentner, and Bethune. Like none of them are over the age of their age 27 season next year, and only Sentner has a year left on her deal. So there are multiple seasons you're going to get out of a very young, incredibly talented attacking group. So it's just a matter of like making sure you have defensive solidity in your central midfield. So for me, I think I do lean slightly positive in terms of my 2026 outlook on Kansas City. Would I have gotten rid of Claire Hutton if I had the ability to keep her? No. But then again, I don't think Kansas City would have gotten rid of her if they had the ability to keep her. And I don't think it's necessarily a stupid sacrifice if the opportunity to get a player like Bethune in is available to you.
Yeah, I think it added a level of risk that a lot of Kansas City fans probably are less than happy to endure. But whether it's like bad risk, I don't know.
Because then the anti-stats argument that doesn't like this deal would say there are things that you cannot measure in terms of central midfield performance with data at the moment, at least on the public-facing side.
And by the way, I might agree with some of that.
And perhaps that information creates the spread between the great and the good and the average and the bad to be larger than we assume. That is possible. And if that is the case, then maybe you're giving up more by giving up Hutton than you are gaining by bringing Bethune in. But for me, I still think this probably is going to work out for Kansas City. 65 points and a, walk to the shield, favorite to win the cup kind of season. No, but I wouldn't have thought that even if they had kept Hutton, because they would have come back down to earth from what they did last year.
And moreover, as we saw last year, you can put up 65 points and not win a title.
Yeah,
and and the goal is like win a title, which is a dual-sided goal, which is you need to be good enough to secure great table position, and then you need to have like interesting enough pieces to help you beat all comers in a knockout, and then you need some luck. All of those things factor in.
Yeah, and Casey had bad injury luck. So yeah, you have bad injury luck, and then you give up a 121st minute goal to Katie Stengel.
God bless you, Katie Stengel.
Right. That's the coin finally coming up tails for you. I'm not rending garments and gnashing teeth about Kansas City's 2026 prospects.
The other thing that before we sort of move on from this, Kansas City's defense last year was
the best in history.
So good
Yeah.
that I think you probably can absorb defensively the loss of Claire Hutton. And will you be worse next year? Inevitably. but like how much worse? Open debate.
Well, that then maybe opens the door of like, what do you do now that Haley Mace isn't around? Like, will Ellie Bravo Young, formerly Wheeler, be able to like weather a 2,000-minute commitment, which she hasn't really done yet?
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe broader questions with Kansas City, but this is still a playoff team. I still think this is probably a top 4 team still.
All right, so let's do it really quick.
Yeah.
Give me a grade for Washington on this deal. Factoring in the Claudia Martinez of it all.
Knowing what they probably had to do just in terms of payroll stuff, I guess I'd probably say that this is like a B+, A-, just because like maybe Martinez is a bust and that money goes down the drain. We don't know. Or she's a massive success and it looks like incredible value. Unanswerable at this point. But you probably needed to get a little bit cheaper, and you've probably thought that you had enough depth to cover Bethune's absence, and you may have just gotten a generational superstar on the transfer market. So like a soft A-, but a B+.
Yeah, I'm A- here
Yeah.
for a lot of the reasons you listed, but also just there's no question that the post-Trinity Rodman signing was going to leave Washington with some really hard choices.
Right.
And in the grand scheme of things, given the hard choices that they had presented to them, this was a hard choice, and I think they did pretty well here. So I'm like A-, potentially an A, depending on what this team looks like in its offensive output this year.
Yeah.
But if there's a front office I have faith in, it's that one.
Yeah.
All right, so next.
Bay?
Bay.
That's an A.
It's an A for Bay.
Yeah, it's an A for Bay.
Yeah,
All you gave up was money to get arguably the future of like global football's central midfield talent.
Yeah, when a Claire Hutton comes along and you have the opportunity to sign her, you do.
Yep.
So A for Bay.
A for Bay.
All right. Kansas City. This is the toughest one.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. Like, it's about what they were trying to accomplish, what we thought, what people probably think they should be trying to accomplish, what we think they should be trying to accomplish. Maybe it's a B to B+.
It's an A if what you get is 2024 Bethune.
Right.
It's a C if what you get is 2025 Bethune.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hedge in between. I'm going to err on the side of Andonovski has done a really good job assessing talent and building a team over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Reindell is a smart person, and we don't know about Chris Armas yet, but I don't hate the problems they've presented for themselves. I'm probably a B+ here.
Yeah, I make maybe a soft B+ to a solid B for me.
Yeah. That's the range.
And by the way, we should also note that like, though recruitment is part of Andonovski's remit, like he's a sporting director with a lot of technical director parts of his job description. Like how this is all getting split, and especially like if moving Hutton on was an actuarial decision, that's really Dell's camp. And so maybe this was like Dell coming to Andonovski and the Longs being like, I think this is how we have to do this. Again, don't really know. But like Andonovski has the global Chris and Angie Long kind of like portfolio of women's football to oversee, not just recruitment elements of the current. So let's bear that in mind. And I think talking about them as a tandem, B to B+.
Yeah, fair. All right, let's just grab some other little movements around the league before we get out of here.
Yeah. Do you want to hit Macario?
I do.
Okay.
Let's talk the Macario smoke.
There's a lot of smoke here. We haven't yet seen the fire. Katerina Macario, with now 4 months left on her contract with Chelsea, has been the subject of a lot of transfer rumor for almost a year, but like very intensely over the last couple of months. And like the stickiest rumor we have seen came from Jeff Kassouf a few days ago, where he said nothing is signed or confirmed, but talks have advanced between her and the San Diego Wave.
Would be great for them.
Yeah. Macario lived in San Diego for 7 years after she moved to the States from Brazil, so she has roots there. She would be going into her age 26 season, which if she came to the NWSL, she's not played in 2 months. Some people thought that that was smoke screen for an eventual move, but the fact that she's not in the U.S., she believes, Cup roster seems to confirm that she has been dealing with a foot injury.
Yeah, that's
so. I don't know if that's the reason that like a transfer has been slowed up or if it's for something else. It's we don't know. I mean, there's also the
could Kat Macario survive a physical right now?
Well,
fair question.
Even setting that aside, is she just getting caught up in the maelstrom of the shit going on behind the scenes at Chelsea Women, as has been reported at The Athletic in the wake of head of women's football Paul Green being let go? It seems like things going behind the scenes are a real mess there, and is getting the paperwork done or making a strong negotiation for her transfer just getting fucked up by the new overseers who don't seem like they're particularly competent at their jobs. I don't know. You are right. She would be an excellent addition to the Wave if
she can maintain health, and if they can secure this transfer, or it'll be a free transfer if her deal has run down.
Well, if they make a pre-contract agreement where she moves in June. I mean, if they can get her to move now, then they get some kind of a fee.
Yeah.
But we don't know if that's the plan.
Yeah, and if she moves for free, she'll cost more in wages, almost certainly. So, whatever the value of the Macario deal is or exists, I think that there is a number at which I would be very uncomfortable given her long injury track record of committing to my salary capped payroll. In a way, in a non-capped league, I would not be concerned.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think San Diego right now, given their youth and the way they've designed this roster, is particularly concerned with breaking the cap threshold. So if you're going to go make a bet on a player who's going to cost you a lot of money every year, Kat Macario is a totally fine one to do, because when she's healthy, she's very dominant.
Well, we don't really know what their budget is right now for transfers. I mean, they got a bunch of money for Naomi Girma, but they spent a lot of money to get Ludmila. They got some money back by shipping Savannah McCaskill to Gotham, but how much? Does that offset things? We don't really know. I don't think Dudinha was free last year either, so how much of the Girma money got chewed up there? We just don't know what the state of their net spend is, and are they playing hardball to try and get that fee down but still spend a fee so they don't have to blow money on payroll? I don't know. It's also worth noting that they've only got 20 active players signed to the roster if you set aside Trinity Armstrong and Jordan Fusco, who are SEI at the moment. So,
there's still a lot of movement to come.
They're not roster compliant.
Yeah.
And maybe the reason for that is that they're really trying to get this Macario thing over the line. I don't know. But, I mean, she's plug and play. I think she would be incredible, either as a false nine.
Obviously a day one starter.
Yeah, either as a false nine or taking over the 10 from Giacorli, and you got to figure out something else to do with Giacorli. And then you have Ludmila and Dudinha as wide players to pick locks with. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, this is a player who, through chance creation for themselves and chance creation for others, is worth 0.6 goals per 96 minutes.
Yeah.
So that is a rare talent.
She didn't play a lot of minutes against the best sides in 2025, but when we do look at those 304 minutes she did play against the likes of Arsenal, Man City, Lyon, and Bayern, I know she didn't play against every single one of those teams, but we look at her playing in that category, and then you adjust for sub effects. She is still a world beater, both in the chances she takes for herself and the chances she creates for others. And everybody knows what she can do for the U.S. So it's a home run if San Diego can get it over the line.
Yeah, I agree.
On the field. It's just a matter of whether they can, and can you parse the Michigas that's going on in West London at the moment,
Yeah, and if there were ever a team that could absorb the loss of a Kat Macario, it's probably Chelsea.
One would think.
Yeah, one would imagine. Let's do some quick hit signings as we go through.
Yeah, Jordan Dudley got signed by Gotham. She was, I think, by everyone's estimation, the best available college prospect on the market, and she waited to probably get a pretty good deal for herself, and she signed for 3 years. She's well set up, and I think Gotham, if they believe the hype behind Dudley, will think that they have just gotten an incredibly valuable number 9 for the future. She blows everybody else out of the water in terms of the college prospect dashboard score that Paul Harvey has created. I think she's the highest rated player in this prospect class.
She's very close.
Regardless of position.
She's the heart of the ocean diamond from Titanic of this college class.
Yeah.
She's the big get.
She's the big get, and she played for Florida State, won a trophy with them, meaning that She's got more minutes against tougher teams than most college prospects, but even she still only has probably about a third of her schedule in college last year against ranked sides. And so is the hype real, or did she maybe run her stats up a little bit against weaker opposition?
I mean, again, we go to Paul Harvey's numbers and she's like an 86, which puts her solidly in like immediate contributing high level starter.
Like future MVP candidate.
Future MVP candidate. You know? So again, like if they've grabbed Soph Wilson, this year's Soph Wilson, that's terrifying for the league. If they've grabbed 60% of this year's Soph Wilson, that's still a hell of an acquisition for a defending champion and a champion for 2 of the last 3 years.
If you believe that Esther's got some juice and you still think Parse can, continue contributing, then Dudley seems like she's a good depth piece. If you think Dudley could hit her 99th percentile, then maybe she's immediately bagging you double-digit goals next year. Regardless, if you think she can get to her ceiling eventually, this is going to be real value for money in the long term, especially when you have an aging attacking core that has struggled to score in your great run under Juan Carlos Amaros.
Yeah, that's the thing. She adds a level of directness to goal that has been sorely lacking for a Gotham team. If she gives you something that reflects like a Bethune-like rookie year, you're in the catbird seat and will be very, very threatening.
Yeah. Another college signing picked up by Denver, Olivia Thomas, another player out of UNC who I think has a very high pedigree, and they signed her for 3 years plus a mutual option. So they're getting her in probably what is a very affordable deal. It's just when you look at Denver's lineup at the moment,
you're going to need some youth.
A, you're going to need some youth, but B, the thing you worry about is is she going to be relied upon a lot? Or she and Jasmine Akey really going to have to carry a significant attacking burden? Melissa Kiesler's mixed in, but I think personally I'm lower on Kiesler than others are. It's real trial by fire, throwing you into the crucible kind of energy with Thomas. But she could hit her upside, and that could work out for Denver.
Yeah, she's a lot less of a sure thing than Dudley, it seems like. But again, what's the expectation for Denver this year? What do they expect to do? They're sort of built as an expansion team to attempt to be competitive right out of the chute. I don't know if Thomas fits that timeline, but you do need talented warm bodies. She's a talented college player. They've also gone and signed Ava Gaetino, who, I think U.S. women's fans will know for her sort of elusive, having spent a lot of time in France and being quite tall center back. But whether or not she's a good NWSL center back, I think is a lot less certain.
Yeah, and defensively, they also finally announced, after everybody knew this was coming, Pauline Perrault-Magnin for 2 years to be their goalkeeper, or at the very least, fight with Abby Smith to be the number one.
Yeah, and that gives them a decent keeper competition.
Yeah, both of them in their early to mid 30s, but thankfully the goalkeeper aging curve is slower.
Very different, yeah.
Also, Perrault-Magnin have never faced probably the consistent level of shot quality that she's probably going to face. So how's she going to measure up to that? We don't know. I certainly feel a little bit better about the defensive side of Denver's roster building than I do about their attack at the moment. But I don't know what that actually is going to portend.
I would agree with you. I feel like Denver is one of those teams that as we get into preview time, I really want to give as much runway as possible so that we can see what that roster looks like.
Probably
because there are serious question marks that hang about that team.
Yeah. A couple of rumored signings. Kiana Palacios might be coming over from America to Utah. Utah continuing their let us sign under heralded international talents that it may be on the wrong side of the age curve and see what happens. I mean, Palacios has flashed quality for Mexico. She's been very good for America in a much weaker league than the NWSL. They need a number 10. It's
Utah, you got nothing to lose.
They really don't. I mean, it's
except more games.
It's interesting. They lost Claudia Zornoza because she retired, and replaced her two-way abilities with two different midfielders. They got Narumi for the defensive stuff, and now they may have gotten Palacios if this transfer goes through for the attacking side of Zornoza's game. What this actually means for Utah's results. like all things with Utah, like I guess we'll see what happens. You're not going to fool me once, Utah. You're not fooling me again.
It's only uphill from here, probably.
Yeah, and then
probably
36-year-old or going into her age 36-year-old season.
Mamma mia!
Cristiana Girelli potentially going to Bay. I've heard different things. That is this a permanent deal? Is it just a loan? Is it a short-term loan? If it's a short-term loan, I guess like take a punter. And
Why
see.
the fuck not? Yeah,
yeah, but she turns 36 in April, and she's a striker. Like, I don't know how much you're really going to get out of her.
Look, every team needs someone who can come off the bench and find goals. And Girelli is good in that way. If you're trying to get 2,000 minutes out of Girelli, oh dear God.
Yeah, and if it's just a till the summer loan spell, then you don't even have to think about that. But that still doesn't answer like who your number 9 is. You know, you've got Kundananji and you've got Hawking, and if Huff can step up, then okay, you've got people who can like feed you the ball and maybe break lines and like be goal threats themselves. But like a dedicated goal scorer, that person is not in this lineup at the moment.
And Girelli would not be that person if you brought her in.
Should not be that person.
Yeah, should not, and probably won't be.
Yeah. So we'll see if that deal actually ends up going through. In terms of departures, the Bethany boss, formerly Balser saga, is finally coming to an end.
I've been following that one on TikTok nonstop. I'm so glad.
Haven't we all?
I'm so glad that she found a home in Dallas.
It's a shame that no NWSL team wanted to pick her up, because I think that she still
there's a good player there.
There's a good player there, even going into her age 29 season. Like how she handled her offseason is...
In fact, Bay would have been probably a solid candidate location for her to land.
For sure.
They really could have used her.
Yeah. But how she handled her free agency on social media, I think some people didn't love.
I found it very entertaining.
I don't know if I have an opinion on it.
I don't work in a front office.
She went to probably the savviest front office in the USL Super League, and the one who's like willing to spend the money that she would have cost. So I hope she finds success there.
Hope springs eternal.
Hope does spring eternal. Any other smaller signings?
Wait, yeah. No, let's take it out.
Thank you so much for listening / watching. Hope you're watching. You can watch us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, where a lot of our other video content is living. Be sure to rate, review, and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at XOwnGoals. That's the letter X, Own Goals. And if you feel like we've made an own goal, drop us an email at xog@xowngoals.com. That's the letter XOG at the letter XOwnGoals.com.
Bye.